Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, our production for Gore column, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives after they put out big news for all the renewable energy investors out there that are looking for a way to participate in the paradigm shifting, it's almost inevitable hockey stick growth of renewable energy, clean energy in the next few years. But you also want to mitigate that without having to go all in, all or nothing on some of these small cap companies out there. You're going to love this interview with Frank Carnevale, CEO at Alkaline Fuel Cell Power, trades in Canada, PWWR, in the US, ALKFF. Why? They've got a three-step business plan to capitalize on the paradigm shift towards zero carbon economy. I call it 1, 2, 3, but it's got a current, near-term, and long-term plan. So they've really mitigated risk. Current is a traditional heat and power business. $50 million plus pipeline of potential contracts. That's in play. They've got 33 active accounts there, 23 proposals at last count. Near term, fuel cell generators for backup and off-grid applications in the B2B world. For example, ideal for diesel generator customers needing to eliminate emissions. That's going to come up in today's press release. And then long term, the hockey stick with the other two kind of mitigating time until they can get there. Hydrogen-powered fuel cells for the consumer market. That's for you and me, B2C. It's a micro heat and power solution that rivals Tesla's Powerwall to power our homes, people at home. And today's press release that we're talking about, another LOI, a letter of intent to integrate Genius Energy Hub. We're going to talk about that, their energy breaker panel with their Jupiter 1.0 fuel cell. Frank, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you very much, George. Great intro.
Yeah, and that's only one of two announcements, because you also did another $1 million in debt financing, which is amazing in this environment when we see the banks in the U.S. are potentially shutting down.
I'm happy I'm not a bank today.
Happy not to be. Hey, I want to talk about the LOI first, because I love seeing people signing up, because that's that third party validation saying we like your technology, Frank. You announced this pilot. Let's walk through it, because this is complicated stuff. But first of all, who's Coben Systems? Who is the company that you guys found an LOI with?
Coben Systems, they are making. Everyone has a panel in their house, a power panel, right? Everyone can picture it. No one wants to go to it. No one's to turn it off and on, the different components. So they make these modern day smart panels, these energy panels. They've manufactured them in Europe. They have manufacturing. They're manufacturing more here. So they're already in the market, and they're trying to scale that. So that's who they are. They have this smart.
And that's important. That's the reason I asked. This isn't George Systems, like some little startup in Toronto somewhere. Coben is a really well-established company. So this is great. Again, more third-party validation that the phone's ringing from the likes of Coben, right?
Absolutely. The linkage of why, I keep telling people, yes, I know we'll have a good value proposition to end customers with our fuel cells, whether they're the generators or the combined heat power units. But when you think about, and we always use an example, your house, right? How they integrate into your house. If you have solar panels, you have a battery storage, even a short-term battery storage, and you have our fuel cell, how do they work together? Who does what and when do they do it? So that's always something to figure out. There's other products out there. But think of it this way. If your panel has to take new sources of power in, and it understands where the sources of power go to, your refrigerator, your dishwasher, all the different appliances in the house,
right? Your
lights, your TVs, whatever. That panel has to be optimal when it comes to where the power is coming from and where it's going to. We viewed that as a critical component. If we're going to be the kingpin of a systems integration in a home, our unit, our fuel cell, needs to be able to kick on when it knows it has to kick on, either price points or no power sources there at that point. It has to know that. This Coben, this Genius Energy Hub is about not only electrically making sure that it's the quarterback of when systems come on and off and what you're controlling. It has the artificial intelligence, the AI, that figures that out from external inputs. So we're now looking at it. Not only can we do a pilot where we integrate their Genius Energy Hub panel on a wall with our fuel cell, but is there down the road a component where it's effectively within our unit? It's attached as a package of our unit. So we become the quarterback of every home systems integration of all of their power sources. That's what we're looking at. So, people wonder, okay, for investors, what does this mean? It means we're always looking to make sure we have the best value proposition to an end customer that makes sure we're going to get more sales, more revenue, and eventually more earnings. And that's what today's announcement is really about.
And what I like about this is it acknowledges that it's not as if, even if everything comes true for you in the world, we're not going to be abandoning the grid and other possible sources, right? So it acknowledges that, Jupiter 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, whatever, as it progresses, is going to play a role, but it needs to play a role within the team. And like you said, Coben has the genius, and that's the quarterback of the team. The fact that Coben, though, Frank, has come to you and said, hey, we want to do some pilots here because we think you can be a part of our team. How big is that? I mean, the rest, we don't know who Coben is at home, right? So
I mean,
in perspective of them coming calling like this,
we're even talking about maybe a $2,000 item from the Coben side, right? So for a new panel, and then our cost in Canada could be around $2,000 a unit. What we're talking about is, and I'm going to put this in terms for investors to really understand. Everyone understands the concept of a blue ocean, right? Everyone loves to create a technology or a solution that has its own blue ocean. And I think they have that to a degree. We definitely have that in our fuel cell. I believe we have that. But my biggest pet peeve in people and in companies that create these type of technologies is not understanding you're in a blue ocean, you made it, but understanding how the hell you get to shore, right? So there's no point in being in a blue ocean without an oar. And I think coupling us with Coben
and a compass
and this Genius Energy Hub gives us a better pathway to integrating. So again, I'm not competing with solar panels. I'm not competing with a heat pump. I'm not competing with arguably even batteries in a home. They have their place. But something needs to tell them when to go on and off, and how to run, when to run. And we're going to be a big part of that answer, along with this energy hub.
Yeah, that's awesome, because you're gonna have traditional grid, solar, fuel cell. So the old days of how we used to power our homes is quickly coming to an end. But
absolutely,
you guys being in the conversation with Coben, what does that do for your global? I'll ask global recognition. Maybe you might want to correct that, but because obviously the world around Coben, because they're such a big company, is going to see this. Are they not going to start saying, "Who is this Frank Carnevale and Alkaline fuel cell power guys?" Right?
Yeah,
I think it must give you some visibility.
It's a good point. They themselves, I think they have a great solution. I get it. I get its value. But again, think of how people go to market. People selling solar panels, it's just, if it generates sun, if it generates electricity, you run it. And that's sort of the model historically. As soon as you get into technology like ours, where you only need to run it when you need that reliable power, you now need a bit more control. So they came up with a solution. They have this smart power panel, where the history in North America, people were content in putting in the lowest cost panel when you were building a house, and people will figure it out. Times are changing. It's no longer out of sight, out of mind. I'll just I take my power from the grid. It's going to be a far more sophisticated package, and a package it is. It can't just be, I expect the homeowner to buy their solar panels, their battery, their inverter.
No, they're not. Well, I'm not going to figure that out.
Yeah, it has to be a package kit.
I need a smart panel, and I want traditional for now. I want traditional grid because you run home to daddy, and that's the grid. You want solar because you hear all the great things about solar, and you want fuel cell, but I'm not going to figure out how they operate. So the genius breaker, the breaker panel, doing that for me, that's exactly what I need. And like I said, the fact that you're in that conversation now is good. What's next? Is it's an LOI and you guys want to move to a JV?
So it's the same situation. We have 3 LOIs right now with 3 technology kind of sister technologies, where they're all enablers of what we're working on. So we have this Progress's Clean Technologies hydrogen separator technology that we're as a partner from a technology. We have Ampower with their ammonia cracking, ammonia to power play with us, and there's great value proposition for both of them. And then we have this Coben Genius Energy Hub. So those three are going to help a lot as we get to deploy them, to making sure we have the right kit, the right package in whatever configuration to really help make the right business case for wherever we're piloting it. We're still in the mix of several conversations for actual sites that make sense, whether they're a municipal site, a utility, some application where on that site, there'll be a business case we can generate of what we're going to do with this going forward, either for them, their industry at large. So we're getting closer on the actual sites where we're going to install this. And again, our intention is to have a sort of Q3, Q4 installation time where we deploy these pilots. And right now, my job is to get as many of these pilots lined up for the sites with sister technologies that give us the best chance of scaling to go to market, right? Scaling that and speeding up that commercialization, and we're on that.
Now, we could go deeper in this. That's the amazing. Here's the question that I think this is probably most important next. If you got one Coben, you'd say, all right, maybe Frank, you know, a couple of guys have a connection. They made a call. They got one. But you got three now. How are you guys getting the word out on the business side that you got the likes of Coben? Because three is not luck. And if there's three, what does the pipeline look like? Because it sounds like you're in several conversations. I don't know if you can go deeper on that.
There are definitely many more technologies and clean tech companies we've had conversations with to look at integrating. But again, and I've said this before about where we put our pilots are intended not just it'd be nice to try, but what will allow us to really scale it and commercialize it quicker. So I'm trying to be really thoughtful as to what's likely to produce the outcome. And there's clearly a difference. Progressive Clean Technologies and Empower are really about how do we get hydrogen to a customer site? What's going to be that process? Is it putting hydrogen and blending it in pipelines for people like Enbridge Gas? Is it ammonia sites and ammonia storage and cracking technologies? So those are about enabling getting hydrogen to the customer, which is unbelievably critical to this story. But in addition to that, if we got hydrogen to the site and we started testing some fuel cells and it wasn't properly integrated on that site, and people still want to run, you know, certain products when they want to run them, we have to make sure we manage the quality control of what happens downstream and what happens when our units kick on and why. In places like Europe, you know, you'll be incented to run certain equipment at certain times, and you could sell power to the grid or to some other party. So, you know, we're making sure our value proposition to get hydrogen to the customer is there. And then what happens when you're on a customer site to make sure we're the stronger player in that equation. So we need to do these things. So that's how those technologies play out. But I can't wait to announce the sites. The sites themselves would be really more, I think, exciting for people to understand. Oh, now I get what can happen on that site or in that, you know, industry. And that has
it's not going to be George's tool shed in the back. It's going to be something people are going to be really, really blown away by.
And each site we're thinking about are sites that absolutely have scalability and replicatability in those channels, in those industry segments, 100%.
How happy should shareholders be with the progress to date in your plan to get the partners, work towards work towards the locations, the pilot sites, work towards solid JVs, and then going out? You know, how happy should they be? Because again, it's this isn't selling pizzas where we can all get it. You know, give us some perspective of how happy you are. And I know you're very hard on yourself.
If this was after 10 months of being here, is the ship going in the right direction? Absolutely, the ship's going in the right direction to deliver on a multiple sort of points. Let's get to EBITDA positive, right? Let's get the revenue and earnings in the door on projects and in various investments. Let's get advancements on the technology, right? So we have the Jupiter 1.0, where we're balancing our books. So from the perspective of there isn't a big burn anymore going forward on the fuel cell side of the business. So I think all the right pieces are going into place. There's a lot more work to do. I think people should be content, investors should be content that the focus is right, that there's actual successes along the way. And you know, there's no home run. It's a lot of singles and doubles, and that's how you win games. And
absolutely.
Not everyone wants to hear that. But those singles and doubles start popping up the runs more and more soon. And so
No,
I'm
this
pretty
is
excited.
definitely a singles and doubles business because you want to try and get the Jupiter 1.0, 2.0. You want to get them on scale around North America, around the world, and you're not going to have one guy do that. But I got to tell you, look, I've followed small cap companies enough to know in 3 minutes I can be talking to someone and say, yeah, George Com Widgets over here, they're just dreaming. He's telling us about this great widget he's got and how it's going to change the world, but no one's interested, no LOIs, no JVs. He's just telling us he's going to change the world, and it. But you guys, I mean, again, this is big, to bring in Coben like this, and it's March, right? So there's going to be more. There's going to be more to come. Now, something really important in order for you to execute on your business plan is money, and we know that we tongue in cheek we talked about. Half the startups in Silicon Valley almost lost every dollar they have. And there are jitters in the banking world, which reverberates into the finance world, which reverberates all the way down. And yet you're able to close another $1 million debt financing. Congratulations on that. How are you able to do that? And more importantly, now you got 5 million in resources available to you. What kind of additional planning, what kind of additional things you plan to do with a bit of a war chest behind you?
Yeah, so I appreciate that. So now it's $5 million we have access to in these notes, and we're trying to be really strategic as investors know. You want to know, well, what do we turn that into? And so we're actively looking at scenarios to best deploy that capital in ways that make us that give us the most value and bang for our buck, and for investors. You look at a number of things, and obviously you want to leverage that in ways that can leverage greater value and greater revenues and hopefully earnings in the door. So there's a lot of things in play. I think acquisitions, I've said publicly, are a big part of what we're looking at and trying to be strategic. This isn't about burning through the cash without attaching it to revenue. And that's the key difference of what we're focused on. I'm sure investors love to hear that. So we are trying to attach it to that.
Absolutely.
And I think there's some opportunities out there. I think the change in the market conditions, interest rates, and everything cause a lot of things to be loose, and so we are looking at some interesting opportunities. So we hope to come back sooner than later and convert that into real revenue and assets and opportunities, and we can announce that publicly. And that's really where our focus is. And the one thing I always know about money is you get as much of it as you can before you actually need it. And when you need it, it's not so easy to get your hands on it. So we're very happy that investors and people who know us are happy and support the businesses to do things like this. And then I think that sends a great signal. But we also need to balance it with the proper equity and the proper value. At some point, can't all be debt. And so it's a delicate balance of how do you go deploy leverage to create more investments and bring them in without tremendous dilution to the existing shareholders. So it's an interesting balance, and we keep putting out news and things that we think will help, will help the share value and will help investors understand why to do it. So there's a lot of moving parts on that.
And something of note from the press release, you haven't tapped into that initial 4 million yet.
That's
so
right.
It's not as if you've got all this done and you've been tapping into it and you're gonna eventually lead to more dilution as it converts or something like that. You haven't even started with that yet. So you were able to accomplish all of this so far, and you haven't really tapped into the fine. So that
I think, another way
investors
investors
be
can
able to do a
look
lot
at it.
more.
Well, we spent, it was about, before I got here, it was about a year and a half of using the money that was invested in 21, right? That was raised to build out this fuel cell prototype. So we did it, we got there, and now we're in the midst of, okay, we're balancing the business, we're getting the burn down, we're trying to get more revenues in from our project pipeline and other acquisitions. So we're doing everything we said we're going to do. But again, there's a lot of singles and doubles. So I think investors should be happy that we have a prototype to show for it. We have pilots that we're preparing to execute for the second half of this year. So there'll be a lot more news on all those fronts. But I'm particularly excited about some acquisition opportunities. And that has to be, I think it's a quicker way to deploy capital and get immediate revenue from it than even announcing more projects that can take another 6 months to a year to get up and running and generate revenue. So it's a proper balance to get investors to believe in our pathway and support what it is we're doing. But so far with these debt notes, it means there are investors and people who are happy with what we're up to.
And that goes back to what I said at the beginning of all this, which is you're able to go for the hockey stick because you have the technology, it looks like. You have some people who are believing, industry people who are believing in you by signing these LOIs that should lead to JVs and these pilots. But instead of all us waiting around, all eggs in one basket, do the pilots work or they don't? And we have no reason to believe they won't, but still, there's risk. You are shoring up the short and medium term revenue finances of the company. So I got to tell you, I'm not giving financial advice to anybody, but it doesn't get much better than that when you're in this speculative space at the same time. I mean, if you want to get better than that, I would have said go buy a bank. I'm not kidding. Last week I would have said go buy a bank stock, but even that's not there anymore. But I don't know, if you want to be in the renewable energy space, if you want to try and grow with that, it doesn't seem like it gets any better.
And George, at the end of the day, I know fundamentals are everything, but the one thing that's critical for everyone to, I think, appreciate is that whether it's our CHP business, right, power flow within buildings, these big generating plants that we're trying to install and run, or it's our fuel cell strategy with our fuel cells and using hydrogen or ammonia to hydrogen to run, they're going to be very cost effective as alternatives. And nothing in those market opportunities would suggest that that advantage that we have would be given up anytime soon. So that's we're having fun that we get to go into buildings, install equipment, give a discount to them versus what they'd pay if they took it from the grid, and still make a better return than the local utility would make for doing the exact same thing without the discount. And with our fuel cells, at some point, knowing we can deploy those fuel cells with the cost of hydrogen in the coming years, where we know will be greatly less expensive than their grid alternatives. So, it's not like we have to do all this and maybe we have some margin. We love the opportunity to deploy these assets in ways that help customers, power to the people, and ultimately exploit the fact that there's a bloated energy system all around us, and we're renewable along the way. So that's the exciting part, is that we are cost effective for people.
Frank, thanks for joining us, man. I love the fact that you always hop onto these. We had you on last week. You had great news there. Got you on this week. But if we do these once a week, I'll be thrilled, because it looks like at some point, man, LOIs, JVs, pilot sites, results from pilots, possible acquisition that you're talking about. You and I, my wife might even start getting jealous with the amount of time.
Well, no, I'm going to be renting out your pool house. I need room in your pool house now. So we need to keep close to home.
If you can help me power that in the summer with your fuel cell, you have a key and you can come in anytime you want, my friend.
That's great.
Thanks for joining us, Frank. Can't wait to have you back, buddy.
Thank you.
To anybody at home, you've been watching or you've been listening to my podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform. To Frank Carnevale, CEO at Alkaline Fuel Cell Power, trades in Canada, PWWR. You got to love that symbol. In the US, ALKFF. For those new to the story, you keep seeing the headlines, you keep seeing the news they're making, LOIs, then get over the company's profile page in Agoracom, because we know this is new breaking ground here. We're not all familiar with it. So we've got that story laid out in layman's terms so you can really understand where the company's at. And then once you have that foundational knowledge, go right over the company's website, do your deep dive due diligence. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. See you next time. Hey guys, the video's over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our YouTube channel so you never miss another great Agoracom small cap video.